What if I told you that no one actually has the power to make you angry? That every time you snap, every time you get bothered, it's not because of them, it's because you gave them the keys to your peace. This isn't about ignoring people or pretending you're unbothered. It's about rewiring the way you respond so deeply, so deliberately, that no one can pull you out of alignment, not even for a second. You know what's funny? Most of us think we're logical, reasonable, mature adults until someone cuts us off in traffic, looks at us the wrong way, or sends that one passive-aggressive text. Then suddenly, we're not thinking clearly. We're reacting. We're on fire inside. And here's the thing, it's not your fault. It's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. But just because it's natural doesn't mean it has to control you. You see, when someone says something that irritates you or makes you feel disrespected, your brain isn't just interpreting words, it's detecting a threat. And when that threat is perceived, even if it's just someone being rude on social media, a part of your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. That part is called the amygdala. It's ancient, it's primitive, and its job is simple: protect you. But here's the problem. It doesn't know the difference between a lion chasing you and your coworker rolling their eyes. So what happens? You get flooded with emotion. Your heart rate goes up, your muscles tense, your vision narrows, and boom, you're in it. You're angry. You're bothered. You're in reaction mode. Now, let me ask you something. How many times have you looked back and thought, why did I let that get to me? That's because another part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, the rational, thoughtful, high-level thinking part, comes online after the storm. But by then, the damage is done. Maybe you snapped at someone, maybe you internalized the anger and stewed in silence, maybe you just felt off for the rest of the day. That's what happens when we let our emotional brain drive the car. But here's where it gets interesting. You don't have to live like that. You can train your mind to respond instead of react. The first step is understanding that what you're feeling isn't always a reflection of reality. It's a biological process. You're not weak for feeling angry. You're not irrational. You're simply wired that way. But when you start to notice the wiring, you start to regain control. The moment you say, my body is doing that thing again. My chest is tightening, my thoughts are speeding up. I feel like I have to say something right now. That awareness alone starts to shift everything. Because the moment you become aware, you create space. And in that space, you get to choose. You get to decide whether this situation is worth your peace. You get to ask yourself, is this person really the threat my brain thinks they are, or are they just dealing with their own mess, and I happen to be in the way? 9 times out of 10, it's not even about you. People project. People react. People carry pain they never dealt with. And when you understand that, you stop making their behavior mean something about your worth. You stop being a puppet pulled by every string of rudeness or disrespect. Instead, you become the calm in the storm. You become the person who doesn't flinch, doesn't bite back, doesn't get pulled into the chaos. Because now you know what's really happening, and you've decided to stay centered. That's power. That's presence. And that's the beginning of never being bothered by anyone again. If you've ever found yourself in a moment where someone said something that completely threw you off, and you tried to tell yourself, just stay calm, but your body was already in full-blown meltdown mode, then you know that telling your mind to be calm when your body is tense is like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a paper cup. It just doesn't work. What most people don't realize is that we've got this whole thing backwards. We think that if we think calm thoughts, the body will follow, but it's actually the other way around. Your physical state dictates your mental state more than your mental state dictates your physical one. If you're breathing fast, your posture is collapsed, your eyes are darting around. You're sending a message to your brain that something's wrong. And your brain listens. It reacts. It prepares for battle. So if you want to master your reactions, if you want to be unshakable, the first thing you need to do is master your state, not your mindset, your state. The raw, physical signals you're sending to your nervous system. You start with the body. Because once you calm the body, the mind follows like a well-trained dog. Let's break this down. One of the fastest ways to shift your state is through your breath. It sounds simple, and that's why most people ignore it. But when you take a deep, slow breath into your belly and extend the exhale, You're triggering your nervous system to relax. It's like hitting the brakes on a car that was speeding toward emotional chaos. It sends a signal. We're safe. We're in control. We don't need to react. Another powerful one, your vision. Most people don't realize that when you're stressed, your eyes narrow. Your vision becomes tunnel, just like it would if you were running from danger. But if you consciously widen your gaze, soften your focus, and become aware of the space around you, you're telling your brain, no threat here. It's subtle, but it's immediate. You can try it right now. Just let your eyes take in more of your surroundings. It's almost like your whole nervous system exhales. That's not magic. That's biology. And then there's posture. If you're hunched over, tense, shoulders up to your ears, you're communicating tension. But if you just lift your chest slightly, roll your shoulders back, and plant your feet, again, your body says, we're good, we're strong. That shift alone can change how you respond to someone who tries to throw you off your game. This is what being grounded really means. It's not just sitting still and looking peaceful. It's about learning to physically send signals to your brain that it doesn't need to protect you. That way, when life throws you a curveball, when someone insults you, challenges you, pushes your buttons, you don't tense up. You don't panic. You don't launch into defensiveness or retreat into silence. You stay grounded, literally and figuratively. You're calm, composed, and clear. Not because you forced yourself to stay calm, but because you set your body up to be calm. That's real control. That's how you become the kind of person who doesn't get rattled, doesn't rise to every provocation, doesn't let someone else's chaos infect your peace. Because the truth is, once you've mastered your state, there's very little that can throw you off balance. You're not reacting from habit anymore. You're choosing from clarity. And that's when you stop being a prisoner of other people's behavior and start becoming the kind of person who leads with presence, no matter what. You know that moment, right after someone says something that hits a nerve, where you feel this sudden surge of emotion rising in your chest. Maybe it's frustration, maybe it's defensiveness, maybe it's full-blown anger. Whatever it is, it feels automatic, like it just hijacked your entire system. And before you even have a second to think, your mouth opens, your tone changes, or your silence becomes louder than any words you could have said. We've all been there. That reaction, that snap, it feels instant. But here's the truth that changes everything. There's actually a gap. A moment. A sliver of space between what someone does and how you respond. It's just that most people never learn to see it, let alone use it. That gap is where your power lies. Most people live their lives on autopilot, letting every emotion that bubbles up dictate how they show up. But the people who are calm under pressure, the ones who don't take things personally, who don't carry resentment all day long, they've learned to live inside that space. Instead of reacting, they observe. Think about it like this. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror and someone throws paint at it. If you're pressed right up against the glass, you're covered instantly. But if you take a step back, you can see the splash without it touching you. That's what observation does. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you choose to step back just far enough to see the feeling instead of become it. When someone's words hit you, instead of firing back or shrinking inward, try this pause. Just for a moment. Don't say anything. Don't even react in your head. Just notice what's happening inside. Okay, I'm feeling tight in my chest. My jaw's clenching. My mind wants to defend itself. That pause activates the part of you that isn't just reacting, it's watching. And when you're watching, you're no longer at the mercy of the emotion. You're in the driver's seat. The beauty of this is that it doesn't require you to suppress anything. This isn't about bottling things up or pretending something didn't bother you. It's about giving yourself the space to respond instead of letting an old emotional reflex dictate your next move. Because most of our reactions, they're not even about the person in front of us. They're old programs running in the background, from past arguments, from childhood, from moments we didn't even realize left a mark, and every time you react instantly, you reinforce that script. But every time you pause, observe, and choose differently, you rewrite it. You start to become someone who doesn't rise to every jab. Someone who doesn't feel the need to prove a point, win the argument, or be understood by people who aren't even listening. You become someone who protects your peace, like it's the most valuable thing you own. Because it is. The next time someone tries to pull you into their chaos, remember this: you don't owe anyone your energy. You don't have to react just because they want a reaction. You can watch the storm, feel its presence, and still choose calm. That's not weakness. That's mastery. That's strength disguised as stillness. And that's the version of you that doesn't just survive emotional chaos. You rise above it. Let me tell you something most people never think about. Stress is not the enemy. That frustration, that tightness in your chest when someone irritates you, that moment your patience wears thin, it's not weakness. It's not proof that you're broken or overly emotional. It's a signal. It's a chance. And if you look at it the right way, it's actually a gift. Because here's the truth: every single time someone pushes your buttons, you're being given an opportunity. You're being shown exactly where your boundaries are soft, where your triggers still own you, and where your emotional muscles still need training. Think about how we treat the gym. You go in, you lift a weight, you stress your muscles. Why? Because that resistance is the very thing that makes you stronger. You don't complain about the weight, you embrace it. You use it. The discomfort is the point. The exact same thing applies to your emotional life. When someone says something rude or dismissive, when a stranger cuts in line, when a loved one forgets something important to you, you're holding emotional weight. And in that moment, you can either drop it and let it crush your mood, or you can lift it. You can sit with the discomfort, breathe through it, and say, "This is where I get stronger." That shift in perspective changes everything, because instead of dreading difficult people or difficult moments, you start to see them as part of your training. They're not interruptions to your peace. They're invitations to deepen it. You begin to understand that the goal isn't to avoid all stress. The goal is to meet it with more skill, with more awareness, with more strength. You know the people who never seem bothered, the ones who walk through chaos with a kind of unshakable calm. They're not immune to stress. They're trained. They've built the kind of emotional endurance that only comes from leaning into discomfort instead of avoiding it. They've faced enough fire that they've stopped flinching. You can do the same. And you start by making one decision. The next time something rattles you, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this here to teach me?" It sounds simple, but that question turns stress into strategy. It moves you from victim to student. It gives you your power back. You might not always get it right. You might still snap sometimes. You might still feel overwhelmed. That's okay. Just like you don't go to the gym once and expect to be fit forever, emotional resilience is a practice. You're building new habits, new neural patterns, new ways of being. And every stressful moment is a rep. Eventually, what used to set you off will barely register. Not because you've numbed out, but because you've grown. You've raised the threshold for what can shake you. You've trained your nervous system to stay regulated under pressure. And that kind of strength, that's rare. That's powerful. That's the kind of presence that transforms not only how you feel, but how others experience you. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, don't see it as a problem to avoid. See it as your next rep, because every rep is one step closer to becoming the version of you that nothing and no one can break. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to stay calm, be patient, and let things slide when you're well, rested, energized, and feeling good in your own skin? And then how everything becomes a problem when you're tired, run down, or running on fumes? That's not a coincidence. That's biology. Your brain and your body are in a constant relationship, and your ability to stay composed when someone annoys you is deeply connected to the baseline you've built in your everyday life. Here's the truth: you can't expect yourself to handle stress like a monk if you're living like a mess. If your sleep is inconsistent, your diet is all over the place, you're not moving your body, and your mind never gets a moment to reset, then of course you're going to be reactive. Of course you're going to feel on edge. You're not failing emotionally, you're just overloaded. Think of yourself like a phone battery. When you're at 100%, you can handle a lot, but when you're at 5% and someone sends that annoying text, you don't have the margin. You snap. You spiral. You take things personally. Not because you're overly sensitive, but because your system is drained. And no amount of mindset work is going to stick if your foundation is cracked. So if you truly want to become someone who doesn't get rattled, someone who doesn't let others disturb their peace, then you have to protect your baseline. You have to build a life that supports calm, not one that constantly disrupts it. And that starts with the basics: sleep, movement, light, nutrition. These aren't just lifestyle habits, they're emotional armor. When you get quality sleep, your brain has the chance to reset. Your emotional regulation goes up, and your impulsivity goes down. You're not just well rested, you're mentally sharper and more emotionally resilient. When you get outside, expose yourself to light early in the day, and move your body even a little bit, you're signaling to your system that it's safe, that it's energized, that it doesn't need to be on edge. Even what you eat matters. I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but if you're constantly flooding your body with sugar and caffeine and skipping real meals, don't be surprised when your emotions feel like a roller coaster. Your blood sugar crashes, and so does your patience. Your hormones spike, and so does your anger. It's all connected. And I get it, this stuff isn't flashy. It's not the viral advice you see all over social media. But this is the real work. Because once your system is regulated, once you've given your brain and body what they need to function properly, you don't have to try so hard to stay calm. It just becomes your natural state. You feel steady. You feel clear. And when someone comes along with their negativity or their drama, it just doesn't land the same way. It rolls off. That's when you realize that becoming emotionally strong isn't about having more willpower in the heat of the moment. It's about having less chaos in the background. It's about setting yourself up to win long before the challenge shows up. So no, you're not just bad at handling stress. You're likely just under-resourced. Fill your tank, build a routine that protects your energy. And I promise, the version of you that emerges will be the kind of person who no longer breaks under pressure, but rises above it, calmly, effortlessly, like it's the most natural thing in the world. There's this moment we all go through when someone says something rude or disrespectful, and we feel this instinctive pull to defend ourselves, prove them wrong, correct them, or maybe just lash out. It feels urgent, doesn't it? Like if we don't say something right now, we've somehow let them win. But here's what's really happening underneath that urgency. We're mistaking someone else's noise for something that defines us. You see, most of the time, when someone tries to get under your skin, it's not even about you, it's about them. Their stress, their insecurity, their unprocessed emotions. But when we absorb it, when we make it mean something personal, we start dancing to their rhythm. We let their chaos determine our response. And in that moment, we lose ourselves. What I want you to understand is that not everything deserves your energy. Not every comment needs a comeback. Not every jab needs a jab back. One of the greatest skills you will ever develop in your life is the ability to walk away. Not because you're weak, but because you're focused. Focused on your peace, your values, your goals, your self-respect. That's real strength, that's power. Letting things go doesn't mean you're passive. It doesn't mean you're letting people walk all over you. It means you've reached a level of awareness where you can recognize what's worth your time and what isn't. You begin to see clearly that most of the things that once triggered you are just distractions dressed up as battles. And yes, there will be people who try to pull you into their mess. Who want to provoke you, test you, press your buttons. Because that's how they create certainty in their own lives. If they can make you react, they feel in control. So when you choose not to react, when you hold your ground and say nothing, or calmly walk away without the need to prove a point, you break that cycle. You shatter their power over you. And I know in the moment, it's hard. It takes discipline to stay silent when your ego is screaming. It takes emotional maturity to choose peace when war feels justified. But if you can hold that space, if you can rise above the noise instead of sinking into it, you win something far more valuable than any argument. You win your freedom. That freedom isn't loud, it's not flashy, it's quiet, it's graceful. It shows up as that moment where you look at the situation and think, I don't need to respond. I know who I am. I know what I'm about. And nothing this person says or does can change that. And here's the secret people start to notice. Not because you're louder, but because you're more grounded. They can feel that you're not playing the same emotional games. You're not flinching. You're not triggered. You've built something within yourself that can't be shaken by someone else's noise. That kind of emotional self-control isn't just impressive. It's magnetic. It's the mark of someone who's done the work, someone who's not living at the mercy of every mood, every insult, every opinion. And when you become that person, you don't need to convince anyone of anything. Your energy speaks for itself. So, when the moment comes, and someone tries to test you, don't give them your power. Smile if you want. Stay silent if you need to. Walk away if it protects your peace. Because when you truly know who you are, you no longer feel the need to prove it. What you've just heard isn't a blueprint for perfection. It's a guide for peace. A path back to yourself in a world that constantly tries to pull you away from your center. Because the truth is, life will keep testing you. People will be rude, misunderstand you, disrespect you, challenge you. But your power doesn't lie in controlling them. It lies in mastering yourself. You now know that calm isn't something you think. It's something you train. It starts with your body, it grows with your awareness, it sharpens through challenge, and it's protected by the routines you build every single day. And in the end, it's not about becoming someone who never feels anger or frustration. It's about becoming someone who knows exactly what to do with those emotions, so they don't run your life. So don't aim to avoid discomfort. Aim to meet it with strength. Don't try to silence the noise. Learn to rise above it. Because the version of you who owns their peace, protects their energy, and chooses clarity over chaos, that's the version who can walk through anything without ever losing themselves. And that's the real win.